Hi everyone, welcome. FPLMattDay here, and I know we're halfway through game week 17 with a few more games to go, but I thought I'd give my early game week 18 thoughts and some transfer ideas for those managers that want to get in early, because we do have an early deadline in game week 18, Thursday night in the UK for the Crystal Palace versus Brighton game, which is a Friday morning in Australia. So it's an early deadline, so it's a good time to give some early thoughts. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like the video and get your comments in with any questions for game week 18 now, nice and early, ready for this week's early game week. Before I start, I just want to wish all the best to Lockyer from Luton and all the Luton players, friends and family. Obviously, that awful incident in the Bournemouth-Luton game, which was really awful to see. There's obviously been a lot of talk what's going to happen from an FPL point of view. I would suggest from my sort of thoughts, I think the likely scenario is the game will probably be called off and it will be replayed at a later date. But yes, all the best. The health of the players obviously comes first in this situation. But look, we'll share screen. I'll go through briefly the fixtures in game week 18 that we have to look forward to. There's some very big games. They all seem to also be big games at this stage, but this is the packed Christmas time where it's back-to-back games, a regular kickoffs, lots going on. So Palace Brighton is the early game, and then you've got a Friday night game between Villa and Sheffield United. You've got West Ham Man United early kickoff on Saturday, followed by a number of other fixtures there, which ends with a Christmas Eve game between Wolves and Chelsea. But look, let's go through some early thoughts for this game week in terms of transfers and players to target. And we're going to start with Aston Villa, who have that home game against Sheffield United, and the best players to target from them. This guy here on screen, Ollie Watkins, you can see there, 44.3% owned. Obviously, he's owned by nearly half the managers in the game so far. He's had a good season at 6.2 points per match. And for me, he's someone that you've definitely got to target in this game. Sheffield United losing 2-0 to Chelsea this weekend, really struggling to get results on the board. So Watkins, to me, if you can get him in there, he's almost going to be an absolute must-have in this one, especially because there could be a possibility that people look to target him as a captain. Diaby, you can see there in the mix. He's kind of dropped off with his form. Minutes becoming a bit of a rotation threat. You've got John McGinn in there at 5.5 million, only 1.6 owned. He's hitting 4.1 points per game. Some of his recent games there, 9 points against Arsenal, 10 there against Fulham. He's got 8 there against Luton, 5 against West Ham. So he's getting those goals. He's getting some of those returns. Definitely a huge differential midfield enabler, and he's always guaranteed to start, but he isn't necessarily their biggest goal threat. But this man, Leon Bailey, he's a bit of a favourite of mine at the moment. He's got a knock for this game week. We'll see if he ends up playing for Villa against Brentford this week. 4.2 points per game there. But as you can see, some of his previous minutes of late, the 4 points against Arsenal, the 9 against City, the 7 against Bournemouth, the 4 there against Fulham. And I feel if he gets to start in this fixture for Villa, there is potential for him to grab a big haul in this one as a differential at 2.3% owned. So I do like him if he's fit. But like I mentioned, Watkins is the key. Martinez potentially as well as a goalkeeper, but not a lot of people are wanting to pay that money. But for me, the key player is Pau Torres, starting pretty much every game for Villa. He's 4.7 million. Quite tight at the back. Villa have been lately. They can see those back-to-back clean sheets there with 6 points. You've got a goal away at Tottenham as well. So for me, I think he's an easy sort of sideways move for the likes of Matt Cash, who isn't guaranteed to start for Villa at the moment, whereas Pau Torres is, and he still gives you that set-piece threat. So for me, Aston Villa is definitely a team to target for game week 18. Let's go to a couple of midfield enablers as well for this week that I think you need to still consider if you don't yet own them. Anthony Gordon here at 23.5% owned, 5.6 points per game, and still only 6.2 million. Luton away. that he's been carrying a few sort of injury knocks lately, but he still keeps getting into this Newcastle lineup. And that Luton away fixture is a real big opportunity for him. Look at some of those scores lately: 6 points, 10 points, 13 points. Does tend to return at home as opposed to away, like he did at Arsenal. There again at Palace. But surely he is due that away return soon. So Anthony Gordon is one big midfield enabler to look at. And then the next one will go into Chelsea, the man of the game week for this week. Still currently only 20.1% owned. It's Cole Palmer at 4.9 points per match. Wolves away this week, trickier game. So for me, if you have to pick between either Palmer or Gordon, I would go Gordon this week, game week 18. And then game week 19, Chelsea have Palace at home, followed by Luton in game week 20. So I think Palmer, you can probably just about wait an extra week on him. I do think he's going to be very highly transferred in for this coming game week. But again, if you've already got Gordon, then aim for Palmer. If you don't have either of them, I'd aim for Gordon first. And then if you've got both and you're in that 20.1% that also own Palmer and the others that own Gordon, then there's nothing you probably need to do for this one. So that's a couple of midfielders. Let's go to a hot topic of mine, and that's obviously Tottenham Hotspur. Spurs players, they're playing at home to Everton, who have picked up form lately. Another very strong performance away to Burnley. Spurs will be without Basuma, who's got himself that 4-match ban. No Udogie, who's got himself a ban for this one as well. So they do have some players out. Obviously, Maddison, Van de Ven, Johnson picked up concussion. You got the Celso there with a flag as well. So there is a few injury worries. Sorry, a little sneeze there midstream. So there is some injury worries in there. But in terms of players to target, you've got Kulusevski here, huge haul at 14 points away at Forest. Looking really lively for Spurs. There was that 12-point haul there against City as well. Scored in the home game against Chelsea. 10 points there, home to Sheffield United. So he's slowly starting to gain some momentum in this Spurs team, playing kind of on that right, sometimes tucking in behind the front line as well. So I think he's a great option there. At 3.4% owned right now and only 7.1 million. So I actually think Kulusevski is a great shout, especially if you don't own this man Son, because I think a lot of people still own Son at 41.5% owned. He's obviously the main man. If you want an alternative to Son, then Kulusevski is your man, as well as Richarlison, who's now playing in that centre forward role. 9 points there away at Forest, 15 points at home to Newcastle, playing against his old club, Everton. I've got a feeling he'll score again in this one as well. So you get yourself those extra midfield points for someone that's playing as a centre forward at only 2.2% owned. So another one I think will come into a lot of teams. And then another last couple from Spurs. You've got Pedro Porro becoming very, very popular. Finally got that clean sheet and bonus this week. But he's returned there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in his last 6 games. And that's even with only 1 clean sheet as well. So Pedro Porro is becoming someone that you definitely need to look at owning. But again, if you're priced out at Pedro Porro and you need someone else, you obviously can't go on Udogie because he's banned this week. You've also got Ben Davis at 0.5% owned. He will get you the Everton, Brighton and Bournemouth games. And he potentially will get you the Man United away game in the new year until Van de Ven is back. Then there's a winter break. Spurs end up playing against Brentford at home here in Feb. And he may even get that one if they don't want to rush Van de Ven back and they don't make sort of any January signings. So that is my Spurs picks for this game week coming. Let's go into Newcastle, and we already spoke about Gordon. So for me, if you are a Dubravka owner who picked up 7 points in this game week against Fulham, which was really good for those that signed him in, especially at 3.9 million. He's rose to 4.1. I think you can double up on this Newcastle defence, and it's a good way if you can afford to get Kieran Trippier in there. This is a great game week for Kieran Trippier. He's obviously 42.2% owned, 5.1 points per match. Here's someone I'm really worried about not owning for this game week. I should have got him in on wildcard. I didn't. So if you can get him in at 6.9 million for this game week, do it. He's had a week off as well. But if you can't get to him and you want some additional Newcastle coverage, Dan Burn back in the goals for Newcastle, back in the team with 14 points. What an absolute bargain this man can potentially be over this Christmas period. Only 2.9% owned, and he was a popular pick last season. So for me, Dan Burn, get him in your team as that double up for this game week if you need that extra defender pick from Newcastle and you can't quite get to Trippier. He is a great alternative to give you that extra coverage for those that double up on the Newcastle defence. So let's go on to another thought here, and we're going to go to Fulham, who play at home to Burnley. And what I will say, this man here, Raul Jimenez, was going to be a popular choice for a lot of people in Game Week 18 with this home game, followed by Bournemouth afterwards. But he's got a red card, which has thrown a huge spanner in the works, -2 points there. So that leads me to this extra point that if you're looking to potentially roll a transfer, you feel like you've got enough players in your team and you want to play one of your bench players that happens to be this man here, Charlie Taylor, then I think you can play him in this one. I know Fulham are scoring a lot of goals lately, or have done, especially at home. But without that goal threat of Jimenez, it does make playing Charlie Taylor that little bit more attractive this week, albeit it is away for him and the only clean sheet he's kept has been at home. But it does make the prospect of having to use Charlie Taylor a little bit more attractive. So go on to my final point, an early thought for Game Week 18, and that is captain picks. And for me, I spoke about him earlier on. Ollie Watkins here is going to be a big captain pick, in my opinion, for this game week. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at Watkins for Sheffield United home. Sort of a second popular pick or two, it's probably Son here at home to Everton. Did really well in the last home game against Newcastle. Seems to be someone that when he gets 2 points, he follows up the next week with some pretty handy numbers. And he's on pens for Spurs right now. And then another one, I think he's a big sort of, maybe even a curveball captain. I know he's got high ownership, but not many people have slapped the captain's armband on him this season, even despite all of these massive hauls he's got. Look there, 12 points, 10 points, 12 points, 18 points. And with a Luton away fixture, I think Kieran Trippier for me is one of the best captain options going into Game Week 18. So there you have it. That's my early thoughts and transfer thoughts for Game Week 18. If you're new, as I mentioned, please subscribe. Also get your questions in ready for the game week. Any transfer, injury, captain thoughts, whatever you've got, get it in the comments and be sure to give the video a like. I'll leave you all there. Good luck for the rest of Game Week 17, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.